I've done a lot of crazy things in my life, but very few have been crazier than an instance a few years ago. I was on an outfit up the Northwest, and I was with the owner of the cattle we were gathering, but he's in a big allotment, and some of the cattle were owned by him, and some of the cattle were owned by some others. And in the big gather, we'd missed about 12 pairs. 100,000 and something acres and 12 pairs. That's pretty tough to gather them with just a few guys. But we had me, an owner of these cattle, and 3 or 4 other guys, young guys, riding big old stout team roping horses. And this is pretty rough country. Desert, rocky, little canyons, lots of crags, lots of brush in some spots down in the holes. And these were Longhorn Cross cattle. And so we started trotting out following their trail. And when we saw them, the portable pens were at the back end of a box canyon back that way. Cattle were that way, and we were right between. We saw those cattle way up there. And looking back on it, I should have kept my mouth shut, but I said, there they are. And I figured we'd make a big old round around a rise that was there, kind of a little mesa, and come in behind them, push them back that direction. Because if you got them down into that little draw and headed them down, they'd follow that draw, and they would get to the point of no return to where they were stuck. And it narrows and narrows into those corrals, and we'd be right behind them. So I figured we'd make a run, and I start trotting off that way. And those other guys go, pow, straight towards those cattle. It took us a few miles to get them turned around, headed the right direction. And we were at a dead run the whole time, manned from Snowy River and over cliffs and stuff. And finally, after running a while, this horse I was on started blowing pretty heavy, and I pulled her up. She's a big old stout mare. I've ridden her a bunch, but she was not handling this. It was hot. And I pulled her up. I said, I'm not killing my friend's horse over this craziness. About that time, I heard a little old calf, something blowing over in the trees over there, a little juniper, kind of a clump. Sure enough, one of them little old calves was just about to die of heat stroke. He could barely breathe. He's just laying there. So I sat there with him for a while as they went pie-ying off into the canyon with those cows. And in a little while, I got him gathered up, put a rope over his head and his front shoulder, and started kind of leading him in. In a little while, the owner comes trotting on up, and he says, we got those cows in the trailer. He said, I'm going to trot over to the truck, load my horse behind those cows that we've got, and I'll come back around to this other gate, park out there, or bring the trailer as far as I can, and then I'll try to bring the truck as close as I can to you if you'll just start trotting over that way to that gate. And I said, all right. So I was nursing that little old calf along the way. Finally, he comes up in the truck, and we tie his little front legs and back legs together, and we lay him up in the bed of that truck, shut the tailgate, and he turned around and started driving back toward where he had dropped his trailer, and I trotted on along behind him till we got back to the trailer, put that little calf in there with his mama, put my horse in the back, and we drove on for home. Do you know that all sounds fine and cool and wild and fun? And it might have been when I was younger. But riding those horses in that heat, in that country, after those cattle, the way we did, was crazy. We could have got hurt. The horses could have got hurt. We could have at least lamed a horse or two. But I've done my own kind of crazy too in the past. In the book of Matthew and the book of Mark, there's a passage where it talks about them being in a house with Jesus, and everything is so crowded they can't even eat. And it says that somebody came there and said, you know, Jesus, your mother and brothers are out front wanting to talk to you. Now, if you go to the Mark passage and you back up just a few verses, it says that his family came to get him because they thought he had lost his mind. Even his mother and brothers thought he was crazy. Now, we wouldn't think necessarily that was his mother and brothers, except for just a few verses later, they specifically say, this is your mother and brothers here. We know Jesus' brothers thought he was crazy, but his mother, we wouldn't think that she would think he was crazy, but here she was. I'll tell you this. They said, your mother and brothers are here to get you. And he said, who are my mother and my brothers except those who do the commands of my Father in heaven? I'll just tell you this. I don't trust you're crazy. I trusted the crazy of those guys that day and about got us hurt. I don't trust my crazy because I've done some pretty crazy stuff in the past that got me in trouble. But I'll trust Jesus is crazy any day. Because Jesus is crazy. It's only crazy to the world. And what happens when we're a friend of the world? We're at enmity with God, or we're against God. So you can trust your crazy if you want to. You might even trust my crazy. I'm not going to trust anybody's crazy, but Jesus is crazy. Because the craziness of Jesus brings salvation. Do you know Jesus today? I hope you do. If you don't, I hope you'll contact us and we'd love to show you how you can. All I know is what it says in the Bible. Thanks for watching.